All right, everybody. I am jacked up today because we're speaking with a really cool dude. We're sitting down with an eight-figure serial entrepreneur of multiple businesses. He's dedicated his life to serving the person he used to be. He has guided Fortune 500 leaders, pro athletes, hardworking professionals, and just about everyone in between to exceed their wildest expectations in life. He's a best-selling author, the host of a syndicated top-rated podcast, Stuck to Unstoppable, where he's had on rock star guests like Grant Cardone and Ed Milet. His thought leadership and business coaching has been featured on Forbes, NBC, ABC, CBS. Stephen Scoggins, thank you for being on the show, my man.
Bro, I'm super excited to hang out with you. We finally could make this thing happen.
We made it happen. We had it on the schedule beforehand. We had a couple hiccups, but here we are. We weren't going to be denied. A couple of bald eagles flying together. It's a beautiful thing. It's actually nice to have a fellow bald guy on the show, by the way. I feel like every one of my guests, like in the past 2 months, has just had this beautiful, luxurious hair. It's nice to have someone else.
Makes you a little jealous a little bit, but it's funny.
Sure.
If I grow my hair out, I have like a peninsula. Like I have like an island that's missing here, and a little island here. So I had to go the bald route, because otherwise I would look really deformed.
Oh, same here, man. Same here. Actually, I've got a few friends actually that have went with this like hair systems thing, right? Where they glue the toupee on top of their head and they blend in the sides. And I think that works for you if you're like, your hair is receding and you're recovering. But for me, I've been bald for like 10 years. Like I'm the bald guy. It's part of my brand. So I think if I went to having hair, I think people would look at me a little side-eyed, a little bit.
And also, I can't speak for sure, but it seems like it also makes it feel like you're probably sleeping with a hat on.
For sure.
Because if it's not yours, like it's just stuck to the top of your head. But anyway.
Right, it's got to get a little itchy too. Anyway, we're not here to talk about
an episode, I guess.
Anyway, we're not here to talk hair solutions. We're here to talk business solutions. So let's dive into that. But first, I want to talk about your story a little bit. Pretty fascinating tale that you've led up until this point. You dropped out of high school. I think it was the mid 90s. You had some great business success almost immediately, and then you lost it all. So I just want to talk about what did that portion of your life look like, Stephen?
Oh my gosh, it's Entrepreneur 101. You taste some success and you do stupid things with the success. It's funny. As I've been working with entrepreneurs across the globe, one of the things that has come up is all entrepreneurs face a sense of insecurity, comparison, or some kind of identity crisis, right? And if you're not in a mature state when you first start your business, then inevitably what happens is you start having success with your business, which is fantastic. You start trying to prove yourself in outward ways to other people just so you can get their admiration without realizing that true entrepreneurs in maturity have admiration from within. They respect the grind, they respect the effort, they respect the choices, they respect the fact that they've got to make payroll, they respect the fact that they've got to, basically create something out of nothing. And for me, I didn't do any of that right the first time. And I was given a huge opportunity, made a lot of money really fast at 19 years old. Obviously grew up in a kind of an impoverished / low income environment. And as a result, I was not trained to handle money. And, as a high school dropout, I dropped out of high school to help my family pay the bills, specifically my father at the time who had struggled financially for a while. And the reality is when I went through that scenario, I had a lot of people coming to me in that moment, like, you shouldn't drop out of high school. You're going to be a failure. You're going to do this, just almost predisposing that I was going to be this, train wreck, if you will, professionally.
Sure.
And so when I started making a bunch of money and I started doing really cool things, I bought the sports car, and I bought at the time it was a big deal to have a sound system in your car where the trunk rattled and the back end of the car popped off the ground. I kind of I went and did all that, and went and tried to date the hottest girl I could find, and as a showpiece. And
sounds like 19.
Yeah, I was like 19 years old. Man, I was an idiot. But I'll tell you this much. That ended up being a massive blessing in disguise. Now, I don't recommend getting it all, losing it all, and end up homeless for a little while. I don't recommend that to anybody.
That's not for everybody.
Yeah, right. But I do recommend humbling yourself now to build something that's worthwhile later, right? And what I mean by that is, in the event of losing all of that and being forced to start over, a year or so ago, I got a second chance I didn't deserve by my first mentor, the guy that gave me the first chance, to be honest with you. Guy, we refer to him as Old Man Myrick now because his name was Steve as well. And, that second chance was just that. He was like, I'm not going to buy you tools. I'm not going to buy you equipment. I'm not going to get the truck. I'm not going to do the things that I did for you last time. Because this guy literally put me in business for myself last time. Like,
Sure.
I still had to go out and work and make it and make the deal work, make the business work. But I had no risk in the game.
Right.
Like he had bought everything. I didn't have any risk whatsoever. The risk was on me. Like his only risk was giving me whether or not he's going to give me a chance or not. Right.
For sure.
And I was very fortunate. The story's been told 1,000 times on other shows, but essentially he gives me this second chance, and then I'm forced to start a business with absolutely nothing. Okay. Nothing but a handshake with a guy with great dentures and material that I was in a construction crash trial. Right.
Sure.
Well, one thing I knew for sure is I was not going to let him down again. And when you build a business from scratch and all the risk is on your shoulder and your back is against the wall, you're going to find out who you're really made of really, really quickly. Right. I went on to build that first business from that standpoint all the way to the high 8 figures. And I did it with no debt because in truth, especially early days, no one would give me a loan. My credit was wrecked.
Got
right?
it.
It ended up being a blessing in disguise. And one of the things I see from entrepreneurs all the time is they think, well, if I go get a Series A round of capital, or if I go do this and get this money, if the bank will just give me a loan. And here's the thing. When the bank gives you money and you don't know how to operate a business that you've never operated before, you're going to make more mistakes with their money, which is going to increase your risk and increase your debt. It basically makes it worse for you, not better for you. I'm a big believer in starting organically, building step by step, getting the critical mass before you ever look at lines of credit and stuff like that. Because that's what worked. It makes you a better entrepreneur. You get better at managing your AR. You get better at managing your AP. You get better at managing your overall cash flow and your net income. And like it forces you to be creative. And the more creative you can be as an entrepreneur, the more successful you'll be, provided you're doing it through the lens of surrender and humility, right? In today's time, there's plenty of entrepreneurs that are braggadocious and jerks and whatever, both male and female. Like it's not unique to a gender. And as a result, they build great businesses that last a very short amount of time. Whereas when you have people that actually join your organization because they believe in the vision, they believe in what you're going to do, they believe in their opportunity with your organization, and you can communicate at a level of maturity, not only will you scale faster, you'll do it with people that are ride or dies, right? And if you're going to build a massive empire, you need to have ride or dies on your team.
I love that. That's all powerful stuff right there. And I guess like the question I would have for you is, and I agree, you've got to get those ride or dies that are buying into your mission and they're there to make a difference. How do you find those ride or dies? How do you weed those out of the crop as opposed to the people that aren't really there for the right reasons?
That's such a good question. You know, I did it wrong for 20 years. And I kid you not. So let's start with how not to hire those people. You don't just walk up to somebody who needs a job and say, hey, I have a job opening. You want to come join the team? Okay. You don't hire friends and family. I don't recommend that. It really muddies the water with what leadership is supposed to be. And there's automatically almost like an ungiven rule where you're going to take more advantage of them or they're going to take more advantage of you because of the relationship.
I think that's a good rule.
You don't hire salespeople to do accounting, and you don't hire accounting people to do sales. Okay. So it comes down to understanding really what you're looking for. I've got a resource that I put out with my businesses. We call it a KRA builder. So a KRA was the term I first heard from Dave Ramsey and his team over at Entre Leadership back in the day. And it stands for Key Results Area. Okay. It's basically a job description, but with the expected result at the end. So it's a summary of the job description, but it says you're winning if you achieve these 3 or 4 things. So it automatically has a predisposed level of metrics. All right. Now that you know what that is, the best thing to do as an entrepreneur, from my perspective, in choosing those team members is to go into a quiet place, grab a pen and a pad, and I can give your audience a cheat sheet if they want it, and do what's called a KRA builder. So some of the things that are on the KRA builder are the following. What type of personality style needs to be in that role? Like, is it a gregarious role? Is it a very specific, very data-driven role? Is it somewhere in between? What type of attitude is that person going to need to have, right? So is it someone that needs to be very consistent with their thought processes and kind of how they kind of pursue it and have a stable pace? Or does it also need to be somebody that's going to be like super optimistic? For example, in accounting, you actually need a more realistic person than you need an optimistic person. However, in sales and fulfillment and growth and customer relationships, you need someone who's more optimistic than realistic.
Right. That's so true. Almost all of my friends who are accountants are just super realistic people, right?
Yeah.
That like they're even sometimes lean a little pessimistic as
Yeah.
opposed to like optimistic. But I
Yeah.
agree that that's kind of got to be their personality type for them to
Yeah.
be effective in that role.
Yeah. Well, and because they're going to ground the entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs, especially early days, are
Sure.
gunslingers,
Oh,
right?
head in the clouds. Let's
We're just
go.
like,
Right.
it's possible, baby, right? Kind of thing. And and a true entrepreneur is like me. They're gonna have a new idea about every 3 minutes, right?
Right. Right.
They
100%.
just not have an idea, knowing how to keep up with that. So
Yeah, we're the people at the conference that are jumping up and down on top of our chairs, whereas our accountant friend is like probably sitting next to us and watching everything happen.
he's probably attaching a bungee cord to your belt. It's probably what he's doing. But when you're trying to build out this role, you need to take the time to identify what the ideal person is. What is their ideal personality style? What is their ideal behavior system? What is their ideal attitude structure? What is their ideal skill set? And I would put skill set over scholastic set or school.
Mhm.
Some of my best leaders did not make it very far in school, but they're phenomenal leaders because they have a natural innate ability to lead in a certain way, right? They see people in a certain way, right? Most of us don't do the research. We're not even sure what position we should be hiring for early days,
Sure,
right?
of course.
So the position you should hire for early days is the position you don't do well. Okay.
100%.
Right. So entrepreneurs need an integrator very early days, and it could be just two of you guys or gals. You got somebody who's kind of creating the vision, the strategy, the kind of like here's where I want to go, and this integrator person is going to say, okay, well, this is what it's going to take to get there, and they help you build the infrastructure out. Okay, so that's going to be your first hire, but before you go hire that person, you need to know what that person should look like, feel like, smell
Sure.
like, so to speak. Right?
Love it.
What is that person's DNA? Right? Once you do that, then you actually post. Basically, this is what I'm looking for.
100%.
And then you interview people against what you're looking for. And as you're interviewing people against what you're looking for, you're going to interview more than one, more than two, more than three, more than five, probably as many as 10 people to get a short list of 3 and then make a final selection. The one thing entrepreneurs screw up all the time with hiring people is they hire way too fast and they don't do their due diligence.
Yes,
right?
I've done that. Been there.
You're going to cost yourself 5 to 10 years of setbacks that don't need to be there. You need to have a team of people that bring out the best in you, and also that you can bring out the best in them. And you do that by sitting down with a nice, quiet piece of paper and a pad and really going through the process. Okay, who do I actually need? Like, picture in your mind who this person is. They're going to walk into the office or Zoom or whatever if you're working remotely, they're going to hop on a Zoom call. Like, what is going to make that experience enjoyable and fulfilling? Right? It's not going to be someone who is being mean to you or being degrading to you or you're being degraded to them. Like, that's garbage. You need someone that can push you to be more successful than you are today. Now, you don't need yes people necessarily. You need people that can add balance to your force, so to speak, as Obi-Wan would say, balance to the force.
Oh, I love that. Add balance to the force. We got to put that on a t-shirt. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I mean, that is really sound advice there on really how to build out a team that's going to be on board with your mission. And it kind of starts pen and paper on a notepad. You really got to know exactly what qualities you're going after, if you're going to fill that role effectively. And, I kind of want to just dive into your story a little bit more because I just think it's a fascinating tale that you've led here. So, 2019, you basically have to turn over your entire executive team overnight, right? Due to suspected embezzlement. And then you kind of switched gears and you decided like, listen, I'm going to start serving the person I used to be. And now you're just running this tremendously successful coaching business. What did that pivot look like for you? And like, what have the last 4 years or so looked like?
Yeah. So the embezzlement thing was 2017 and it was by people that were very close to me. Many of the people that I thought were my ride or dies, which is where I learned the lesson to be very careful and very selective. When you do that, you're going to get very, very clear on what you need to hire moving forward. And I was very fortunate. I was able to put together a new management team within probably a month or two that was much more consistent with our DNA, what we wanted, where we wanted to go. But I had to create an opportunity path for them. Okay. One of the things that I learned when I built the construction business, which was my first company, is that I didn't build a construction company. I had actually already built a personal development company masquerading as a construction company. Okay. which means the difference is when I come into the office or when I'm working with my team, it's not all about the tactic or the strategy. Okay. It's also about how you're momming them. Like, what are you facing? What's holding you back? Here's a good book you should read. Here's a good training I saw on YouTube, or here's a fantastic podcast like yours to listen to, right? It's being able to have the ability to identify within yourself what needs to be worked on, and also have the ability to be able to do the same thing for someone else, but through the lens of encouragement and empowerment. Okay. All of that wrapped up into one thing turned into the fact that I was developing leaders quickly, and I didn't realize it until some of my leaders had already overdeveloped me in their skill set, which is fantastic, which is exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm.
It helps you get around the insecurity of what traditional leadership looks like. When I began doing that, I began seeing that some of the content that I would have been giving them, some of the frameworks. I'll give you an example. I'll give you 2 frameworks real fast. Most business owners don't understand there's 5 phases to building a business. Okay, especially if you're doing it from scratch. There's the startup phase, there's the testing phase, there's the investing phase, there's the scaling phase, and then the 5th phase is operating or selling it. Are you going to operate the business or sell it? Okay. Each one of those is the season that the business is in. Okay, so that's one framework. Another framework is the 5 core drivers of building a successful, what I refer to as an unstoppable enterprise. Okay. Number 1 is development, right? It's developing the idea, the strategy, the concept, the vision, the mission, the core values, the beliefs, the things you stand for, the things you stand against, right? All of that's kind of lumped in that category. The second phase is selling. What are you selling? How are you selling? How are you positioning? What's your pricing structure? All that kind of stuff. The third phase is fulfillment. Okay. How are you going to deliver that product, good, or service with excellence to everybody else around you? Okay. How are you going to manage those, the success metrics on delivery of the fulfillment? Okay. Followed by finance. All right. Well, now you're making money. What do you do with the money? Right. You don't do what I did the first time and go out and buy sports cars to impress hot girls. Right. You don't do that. Right. You reinvest your capital back in your business. Right. Again, most of the things that I teach nowadays come from a place of learning a very hard lesson. Right. When you get to the 5th category is creating that raving fan retention. It's how does that customer continue to buy from you routinely? Like, what is the experience? The experience has to be so profound and so meaningful that they're like, I can buy from anybody. I can get business coaching. I can get strategy sessions. I can get whatever stuff I want from other people, but I want Scoggins,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Scoggins cares about me. He cares about my outcome. If your customers don't feel like you care about them or their outcome, they're not going to buy from you again. Okay. So those are 2 examples of 2 very quick frameworks that I've intuitively built and understood just by living out a 25-year career in building a business. Okay.
Yeah. And the truth is that they're going to feel that. They're going to feel if you don't really care about them and their outcome.
Yeah.
People, we're pretty intuitive at our cores. And if we're working with someone who's just trying to cash a check and they don't really care about our outcome, maybe not from the first step, but eventually we're going to figure that out. So I think so important to come from the right place, especially in your role, coaching, personal development, helping people achieve their dreams.
Yeah. So when you think about it this way, the teams that are going to help you scale an organization are going to have one thing in common. Well, they're going to have a lot of things in common, but this is a primary one they're going to have in common. A primary one they're going to have in common is they're going to actually care about the customer's outcome because they see themselves as an active servant in the role that they're in. So, for example, my construction company may do exterior services, but really what we do is we insulate and protect families. Right. So with the level of quality that we offer that service, at the end of the day, the person that's ordering the job package, the person that's doing the estimating, the person that's doing the accounting, they can all say, I help protect families. Right. It's the ability to tie the meaning to something bigger than yourself that is a huge, I guess, a huge attribute that has to be cultivated over time. But when you start developing frameworks and parts and pieces and you start to see them have a meaningful impact in people's lives, you're like, holy cow, this is so much fun. This is so much fun. And I got the construction business to the place where my management team, my executive team has done a tremendous job running it. They're creating higher margins than I was able to create on my own. They're adding all that value. I'm like, okay, well, you guys technically don't really need me anymore except for the strategy sessions and to make sure you're operating these key drivers. What am I going to do with my time? Right.
Right.
And when you get to that, you very quickly realize, well, again, this is a question you have to ask yourself as an entrepreneurial owner, because you're going to go through different seasons. What is my ideal value? What is something I'm uniquely qualified to talk about? What is something I'm uniquely positioned with experience to mentor and teach, right? And then it became very easy. Well, life transformation and business transformation. I've had to transform my life from the inside out, from an insecure, homeless, high school dropout, ADHD, dyslexic kid, right, to a relatively successful entrepreneur that generally has good teams, that generally trying to do good things in the marketplace. Okay, well, that's a personal transition, right? And then on top of that, you got the business transition. Well, how did I freaking do it? Like, and my faith is a huge part of me. I am convinced that my faith, God, for me, Jesus, played such an active role in my development that because it doesn't make any sense otherwise. It doesn't make
Sure.
any sense a homeless kid or someone who learns poverty overall. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to go through that experience and then end up becoming an almost 9-figure entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I want to dive into that a little bit because I don't want to like graze over the spirituality part because, like you said, it's a fundamental part of who you are and how you've gotten to this place. I think it was around 2011 I read that you kind of rediscovered God in your life, and I think that some people out there are just curious, like, what does that look like in practice? Like, do
Yeah.
you think that daily prayer has been fundamental in you becoming the person you are? Or maybe it's, daily Bible study. Like, what does that really look like in practice for you? And how you think this relationship with God has really helped you to be who you are?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I think a couple different things. First of all, one of the things I've realized is that we're all on our own journey. Okay. Meaning it's wrong of me as someone who's been walking with Jesus for a number of years to critique someone who's brand spanking new talking and walking with Jesus. Okay. It was one of the benefits that I received when I rediscovered my faith and rediscovered my connection with God after spending an enormous amount of time as an atheist and Big Bang Theory and dinosaurs and whatever. And then something as silly as my grandfather said, well, if we evolved from monkeys, and how can we still have monkeys? Right. It's like we would have
Sometimes
all evolved,
grandpa,
you know?
sometimes grandpa can just break
Yeah.
it down, like no one else can.
Yeah, that's right. But then you start digging into things. And I think for me, if you don't have a relationship with a higher power now, when you face tough times, those tough times are going to be harder than they need to be. However, if you could cultivate a level of spirituality, invite you to learn more about Jesus. You will see that most of what the world teaches about Jesus is not what Jesus actually said or did. So I always encourage people to go read the book of John. It's the best one to go read from a balanced approach to better understand Jesus specifically. I run my businesses how I think Jesus ran his disciples.
I
Okay.
love that. I
I
love
treat
that.
people how I want to be treated. I challenge them to do more and grow quicker than they've ever grown before. I want them to be relationally connected to me. I want to be relationally connected to God, um, because the relationship side is more powerful than a transaction side, right? If you're reading the Bible just to say I read the Bible today,
Hmm.
then you're wasting time. Now, if you read the Bible or the Torah or some other holy book that you describe to, and you read it with the intent to learn something new and develop yourself and to develop a deeper connection, then you're using the time wisely. Okay. Um, Early in my career, I would pray, and I started off with Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, like all the way through that, and that was like and I did that repetitively. That was my mantra. I was like, because why? Because Jesus said pray this way. Okay, great, I'll just do that way, right?
Right.
And it was better than rub a dub dub, pass the grub, yay God. It was just kind of like it's kind of what I did. But as you begin to develop your deeper relationship, you're going to see different things about yourself that you will get to work on. You'll also see different things. I call it divine inspiration or whatever. It's going to give you insights into businesses and strategies. And a lot of what I've accomplished in my life with businesses have either come through pain or have come through divine intervention. Like strategies, I'll give you an example. When 2008 happened, the construction industry specifically got nailed. Okay. I had a divine inspiration on my box truck that I owned at the time, to rather than have my logo on it, I put many of my customers' logos on it and gave them a mobile billboard, right? Something unique. That was not something I thought of on my own. So hence the
Hmm.
reason to have this divine connection. The other thing that happens now is there is truth to energy and resonance of soul. Some would call it quantum, and there's absolute truth to Jesus. When you read the scripture, you can actually see Jesus operating within quantum as well as in the soul, and basically what's called resonance. or some would call it high frequency and all this kind of stuff. I know I'm trying to get too woo woo, but essentially, when praying becomes more about gratitude and more about encouragement and empowerment, then what happens is your meditative practice ends up becoming more mantra specific. So, one of my mantras that I use fairly regularly in the morning after I've prayed, after I've had a chance of downtime, after sometimes if I've read scripture or I've gone through like a spiritual pause, if you will. I think every day should start with a spiritual pause. Is this mantra: I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am wise, and I'm absolutely a steward of the Most High. Because that means that I have to steward my wealth, my health, and my wisdom in the service of other people in order to be effective in the world. And what I've learned is as I've had that mantra as part of my operation, my daily operation, my daily routine, what I'm beginning to see is in some cases I am healthy, I'm in good shape, I can breathe, I can run, I can jog. I'm in, I'm almost 50, which I think I look pretty decent for 50.
You look
You
damn
know,
good, man. Looking
well,
good,
thank you.
brother.
Right. Um, so I'm well, and I'm able to, I'm currently able to steward wealth. I own that with an open hand. If God decides I need to be knocked back a couple of pegs, He can do it. I'll receive it. I don't want that to happen because I definitely like living with more freedom than not. But at the same time, I recognize it's a gift and not something that I'm owed.
Mm-hmm.
So healthy, wealthy, wisdom. There's been things that obviously, hopefully, that come out that are like profound. Because of the connection is the profoundness comes from the entity that creates profoundism. I think I just made up a new word.
It's
Profoundism.
all right. Let's go with it.
Yeah.
We'll contact Webster. We'll have that one put in by the time
Yeah.
the show launches.
Yeah, for sure. And then it comes down to be a steward, right? Like, again, if you're going to be successful in business, everything you do has to come through the heart of the service. I say all of that to round up how did I end up in this category of serving the person I used to be. I realized that when you set out to serve the person you used to be, you're going to serve the different versions of yourself that you have transitioned through or been through or experienced. The reason you're uniquely qualified to help those people specifically, whether you use it as a business or a hobby, doesn't matter, or a combination of both, is because you have unique empathy and compassion for the very circumstance that person's facing. Whereas somebody who hasn't been through homelessness may walk past somebody who's homeless or going through a tough time and not think twice about whether or not they're mentally ill or they're addicted to something or they're down on their luck and just made some bad choices, right? It's that concept of understanding that the information that I have is uniquely qualified to serve the versions of myself. So the startup person, we have a program called Unstoppable Startup, right? I try to help 6-figure entrepreneurs create 8-figure empires. It's that simple, right? Well, first of all, I have to get some of them to 6 figures first, right? Well, how do I do that? Well, we got to focus on the drivers, right? And then we got to optimize the drivers. Then we got to manage the drivers. And by making things bite-sized and systematic and hopefully understandable, inevitably what happens is the learning curve is shortened at a great deal for an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs create jobs, entrepreneurs create community impacts, entrepreneurs create resources, entrepreneurs innovate the marketplace. I mean, it wasn't 4 months ago we were even talking about AI all the time. Now you can't AI this and AI that, and
Everywhere.
I'm thinking to myself, watch out for Terminator, guys. We're all over top of it. So,
100%, 100%. Judgment Day. I'm not going to watch Terminator 2 anytime soon. I think that would just scare me to death.
yeah, right. So,
but
that's kind of my shtick on that side.
Listen, I think that was powerful stuff, and I think it's clear that the closer your relationship got with God, the more that you walked with Jesus on a daily basis, and that communication, those open lines of communication with a higher power became more consistent. The better things got for you. I mean, I think there's certainly a connection there, and the more lives you were able to touch in a positive way. And, that's why I want to dive into that. I think a lot of podcasts and conversations shy away from the spirituality aspect, but I think in a lot of cases, it's such a core, part of people's stories that it's something that needs to be spoken about.
Yeah.
And kind of, during that last segment, you talked a little bit about like a morning routine, a moment of silence, some Bible study. Do you have like a set morning routine that you go through on a daily basis? And if so, I think that the audience would love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do, and I'm happy to share about it. And before I share it, I want to encourage your audience, especially if they're on the entrepreneurial journey or the leadership journey or the achiever journey, to make this an absolute priority. Okay. I don't know who said it. It's been said 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways. But if you let your day run you, you'll never own it, right? But if you choose how to impact your day and start your day, then you will own the day and seize the day. Carpe, was it called? Carpe diem. Carpe diem,
Carpe
right?
diem, absolutely.
Right. I learned a long time ago that if I follow a certain routine, I feel better throughout the course of the day. Okay. So a couple different parts and pieces. I wake up on average between 5 and 5:30, almost without an alarm clock nowadays. I still set it, but I also I set it to peaceful music. So it kind of like lullabies me in the wakiness.
Love that.
But
Love that.
but
And I don't want to interrupt you. What time do you go to bed to wake up that early?
between 9:30 and 10.
Okay, so you're getting your 7+ hours of sleep.
Yeah. I'm not I'm sure early days I would work into the wee hours of the morning and operate on 3 to 4 hours of sleep. And I mean, there may be a time and a place for that. I don't recommend it because it's going to make the decisions you make during the day more challenging or
Hmm.
less productive many times. But no, I wake up around between 5 and 5:30. I always start the day with gratitude. Some of the mantras that I've already mentioned: I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wise, I'm a steward of the Most High. Prayer, being prayerful and mindful of the things that I'm going to go through during the course of the day, asking God to give me opportunities of service, asking God to give me wisdom to deal with the day and the things that come up, to kind of make sure that I make great decisions because I know that with every decision there's a consequence. To give me the ability to see 5 years ahead, right? So not that I'm so focused on today's problem that I make a decision to solve today's problem that calls myself 5 years with more problems. So more strategical thinking. So that's kind of like the the prayerful mindset. I'll typically do what everybody else does. I get up, go to the bathroom, and brush my teeth and kind of grab my gym bag, and then I'm off to the gym. Now,
Nice.
when I'm off to the gym, one of the things that I've decided to do is early days I would listen to music and like Tupac my way all the way to the gym and kind of get fired up, California loving, whatever. But I changed my approach. I decided about 5 years ago to look at the 7 days a week as an opportunity to learn something new each day. Okay. So on the way to the gym, I will focus on a particular area of life. On my website, yeah, there's a blog called "The 8 Pillars of Life." It discusses all 8 pillars. But each day of the week, the final one's contribution, by the way, because you're like 7 days, 8 days. How's that play out? Eighth is contribution. But the 7 pillars of life allow you to focus on one concept. So on Mondays, I focus on financial wellness. Okay. So whatever podcast, whatever video I'm watching, whatever kind of resource I'm reading is really focused on just optimizing and strengthening that pillar. On Tuesdays, it's emotional intelligence. Okay. Making me emotionally strong, making sure I operate in confidence and not in arrogance. Just kind of really kind of dialing in myself. Wednesdays might be family. Like I might be really like sending out family notes. Hey, I love you, dad. Hey, I love you, mom. How talking to one of my team members, how's your mom and them? Like I find that breaking down and focusing on one area of life each day with singular focus creates compounded efforts and momentum in personal growth. It also allows you to get not overly leveraged. A lot of, especially entrepreneurs, will focus heavily on the financial side. Like they got to make more money, got to make more money, got to do some more sales, and they get and then their health is jacked up, right? They're not healthy. So by doing that, you can actually build yourself a little routine of spending an hour to an hour and a half, one day a week on any given segment that allows you to have consistent growth in every single segment. Okay.
Wow, I love that. That's powerful, man. And I've never heard that before, honestly. I've never heard of like taking each day, devoting it to a different pillar of life. That way, you're growing in all categories at the same time. That's great stuff. So you listen to that on the way to the gym while you're at the gym
So
as well.
it's a 90-minute window, right? So on the way to the gym, while I'm at the gym, and on the way to my first appointment. Okay. And sometimes
Excellent.
my first appointments are in the office, sometimes they're not. Sometimes, it depends on what I do. Cause like on Tuesdays, I'll record our show. On Thursdays, I typically do supplemental content, be a guest on someone else's show or actually produce content for our audience, etc. But by segmenting that category out each way, then my first appointment starts my day in 15-minute increments. So I'll bundle my day in 15-minute increments. So when you and I agreed to hang out together and do an amazing show, hopefully the audience is getting a kick out of it. We're having a good old time. I know I like hanging out with you, dude. So that's been fun.
I hope they're having as much fun as we are.
Yeah, right. But I gave you three buckets. Like I gave you
Right.
three 15-minute buckets that obviously make up that. What happens is if you can break your meeting times down into 15 minutes, it's going to force you to leverage the most out of the meeting and not get so wrapped up in catching up and hanging out and whatever. Like one of the mindsets that I've seen with fellow 8-figure and 9-figure entrepreneurs is you're very deliberate with where you spend your time. I would
Yes.
dare say invest your time. Okay. When you're breaking your stuff out into 15-minute increments, inevitably what you're able to do is you're able to really prioritize what's most important. So by the time you're ready to go home and spend time with the most people that are important, you're in a great position to do so.
So you break every day, Monday through Friday, or maybe even 7 days a week into 15-minute increments. Like even if it's not meetings, like you'll
Yeah.
devote 15 minutes to content creation or creating a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like in practice? Like, is that like a night before thing, or do you plan the whole week out in advance on Sunday? Like what does that time
Yeah.
management system actually look like?
It's more difficult to do it the night before than it
Okay.
is to have a trajectory path, right? My good friend Evan Carmichael, he's the one that taught me to budget certain things on certain days. So I want to say his content day is Thursday. That's when he's talking to the audience. He's getting on live streams and stuff like that. And I know Evan well enough to know and hung out with him at his house more well enough to know that he follows his own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's very regimented, and as a result, he creates compound momentum with his time, talent, and resources. Okay. So what I recommend is you need to determine what works for you. Because if you're the owner of the company, maybe one day you might need to have one day a week where you meet with all your key leaders for 15 minutes and pops to get updates. Okay. You may have one day a week that's better for you to singularly focus on finance matters, singularly focus on client development matters or sales matters, etc. I think it's open-minded to what the personality style best operates in. Okay. I operate best in having an idea about where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there. Even when we originally tried to set up the show with the whole scheduling boo-boo that happened between our teams or whatever, like the reason I wasn't there was because I didn't have it in my calendar.
Right.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I have to have stuff in my calendar to make sure I show up at my best. Now, the tricky part or the interesting part about that is you have to be intentional about what goes in your calendar. I've had to learn to say no to a lot of things, and I say yes to things that I'm planning on being fully present and engaged with. Right. My oldest son told me a while ago, and this is something that's something I've been working on for a number of years. He said, if there's one thing you can work on, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, tell me. I want to know. He goes, if you could learn to be more present when you're present, it would mean a lot.
That's
Think
powerful.
about that. Okay. So that was a life shift for me in that I decided I wasn't going to just apply that to my family. I was going to apply that to everything that ended up in my calendar and with my family. So right now I'm locked in with this awesome dude across from me who I think we're having a great show. Because we're vibing really well and stuff together.
Oh, for sure. I'm feeling good about this one right now, Stephen. Definitely. The bald eagles. We fly together. We can just vibe off of each other.
Right. But I want to be present. I've got my iPhone on Do Not Disturb. I've got the computer system over here on Do Not Disturb. My team is out of the studio right now because they were editing some stuff ahead of time.
Sure.
And
And I can tell you're locked in right now. You're holding what looks like a baseball the whole time too.
Squeezy ball.
It's a squeezy ball.
It helps the ADHD version of me to deal with. I
love it. It feels like we're having a catch right now. I feel like we're just having a little soft toss in the outfield. I love it.
That would actually be like a really cool clip if we can get your team to catch it on your end.
Yeah, I'll my video editor work on that. I haven't asked her to do anything like that yet, but I think she's up to the challenge. So, do you kind of bucket and theme your days? Like one day is a content day, one day is a business development day, so on and so forth?
As much as humanly possible. Again, Mondays I come in for my flagship company and I'm spending time with them. I'm developing a legacy plan for them, so I'm spending a lot of time and energy with that. On Tuesdays, like all day Tuesday this past week, I was interviewing people on our show that our producer, obviously my producer handles all the bookings there, but dealing with the produce, basically having the shows, getting prepared, reading the books that ahead of time, or the resources or the things that I need to do to have a good show. Mm-hmm. On Wednesday, I'll typically get a financial update from my larger company and spend a lot of time looking at financial dashboards, and there are lots of pages and Excel spreadsheets and stuff. And all I'm really trying to get to is what's the net income at the end of the day, and what are the opportunities for improvement in our overhead buckets, right? And then Thursdays is typically shooting content. So yesterday I filmed all kinds of new videos that we're going to be uploading to YouTube, which I haven't done in a really long time because I've been so occupied with my larger company the last few months.
Sure.
That'll be what we call direct to camera. So it's me talking to the camera about a specific principle, a technique, or whatever. And then I'll also spend some time yesterday writing out something that I think will be a great new resource I'm gonna launch, which is actually came from our copywriter, because I was asking her, so what is a resource that entrepreneurs could really do? Like, what could they do? She goes, honestly, if you could just tell us how to think like an 8-figure entrepreneur, that would be awesome.
You're like, okay,
huh, interesting.
let's do that.
So I wrote out 9 points yesterday, and I'll create a video series on those 9 points. So content days Thursday. Friday is typically like a wind down. Like, I'll do the things that still need to be addressed that haven't been addressed through the course of the week, and then basically use it as a wind down, so I don't go into my weekend with my family amped up. Like, that's kind of like the strategy there. It's when I typically connect with my team. I try to make it a point to go through the offices and say, hey, how's your mom and them? I know you guys are fostering that child. How's that going? Like, again, it's all about connection, and the connection comes down to non-diluted focus. If you have diluted focus, as my good friend Rory would say, if you have diluted focus, you're going to have diluted results, right? So if you can get to the place as an entrepreneur where you can focus on the most important thing and be present for that most important thing at that time, you will create what I refer to as momentum.
Love that.
With momentum, you can break down every single barrier and every single wall in front of you. Most entrepreneurs won't fully commit to that process for 3 to 5 years. But those that do, the rare ones that do commit to that process 3 to 5 years, they become 8-figure and beyond entrepreneurs every single time.
So whatever's in your calendar for that 15-minute increment, you're there completely, 100% focused on that person or that task. And then when the next 15-minute segment comes up or the next hour comes up, you're focused on whatever's in your calendar at that point. I think that takes practice, right? Because as an entrepreneur, there's always problems coming up. There's fires to put out. There's bullets flying. And I think having the resolve to stay focused on the task at hand while, there's madness going on around you takes a lot of practice, but I think it's something that's worth working on.
It does. And again, there's never a great day to start except for today.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And one thing I want to ask you about, because you are like a business coach that's kind of really broken through the noise, right? Everyone knows a coach these days. Everyone's a coach. Your aunt's a coach of this, but you have really broken through. I mean, you've got almost 100,000 followers on Instagram. You've really built up a large presence within the space in not too long of a time. Just curious on the business model of coaching. Like, where does the revenue come from? Is it mostly one-on-one coaching? Is it mostly seminars? Is it a lot from the podcast or online courses? Like, where does the revenue really come from in a coaching business?
You're going to find that people in this space, they do really well in one of the segments you just mentioned, and they do okay in the others.
Right.
I think one of the things that's helped us be pretty successful pretty quickly is the fact that I'm, at least in this genre, I'm less focused on financial performance and more focused on impact. So when I spend time with somebody, I legitimately want to, like, tell me about your business. What's going on? What's your greatest headache? What are you doing? What's going, and some of those conversations, I confront them about their leadership. And other times I give them strategies on how to overcome a specific obstacle. I think it comes down to intentionality. So for me, what I love to do most is actually do our live events. I just come alive on stage and working with people and out in the concourse and the cafe area, and I make myself readily available during that stuff. I don't what's the backward? I don't believe my own stuff. Like, I realize I am them and they are me. Right?
Yeah.
We're just at different stages, and I think that resonates with people. And then I hand select people I work with one-on-one. I get a lot of requests to work one-on-one with folks. I will work with 10 entrepreneurs a year, period.
Okay. So that is the limit. Like, you're not trying to take on like 30 one-on-one clients. You'll take 10 on that you think you can really help get to the next level.
Yep. And there's a couple different things we're doing. So there's the 10 that I can really help. It starts off in a relationship. I do a 2-day immersive with them. I'll go to them. I'll spend 2 days with them. We'll basically put their business on a wall. In grand scheme of things, we'll pull it apart. We'll put it back together with more operational excellence that had previously been there. And then I'll work with them on a month in and month out basis for the first year. If I see that they're teachable and I see that they're doing great work and I see that they can scale their company and maybe they don't have quite all the parts and pieces they need, from liquidity to training to team members, et cetera, then in some cases I'll come alongside of them and I'll take a small percentage of their equity in their business and I will help them develop their business from scratch. When I've done that, I help them make 7+ figures, and then I'm making 6 figures on an individual basis, on a consistent basis.
Sure.
But I'm building a network of entrepreneurs that I know, like, and trust, and that know, like, and trust me. You see
Love that. That's really interesting
stuff. By doing that, again, it's all about the long game. If I believe that if I serve well, all the rest of the stuff follows. So do we make money with our online school, especially the new one we're about to launch in a couple of weeks? Absolutely. What do I use it for? I use it to reinvest in the business.
Right.
Like I have to this date, out of Scoggins International specifically, I haven't taken any money out for myself. Like it's constantly buying. You can't see it here, but I just put in a brand new virtual studio literally right in front of me. Right. I've got a 400 seat auditorium in there that has 400 plus seats, all the LED walls, all the elation lighting, all the sound equipment, stuff like that for major events. I had my Let's Book launch here last May, right?
Oh,
You
that's
can live stream
exciting.
25,000. Well, there's significant investment for all this stuff.
Sure.
Right? For every 1,000 people, I have to have a new Mac Mini and all the devices that connect to it to make it work.
Right. And those ain't free.
No, they're not. At least not yet. Maybe if Apple will become a sponsor for Apple, maybe I can get hooked up. But no, I mean, again, it's the business model should be based on the person's skill set. If you are a great one-on-one educator and teacher, then that's what you should build your business model on. If you're not so good at the one-on-one education, but you're great on stage, then you need to focus on live events and keynotes. If you're somewhere in the middle, then you probably want to create a reoccurring revenue model out of an online course or a system that's evergreen, that is literally working while you're sleeping. Okay. At the end of the day, they're all great models, but you should start with the one that works best for who you are.
Oh,
You
that's
should not
excellent.
copy every single thought leader out there, because it would blow your mind to realize how not as successful some of the programs are from a financial perspective for the thought leader. And then when you actually go and leverage what they're really, really stinking good at, they do incredibly well on it.
That's powerful stuff. No, I mean, that's really cool. Leverage your true talent. That should be your initial offering. You can build out the product suite later on, but really know what your core talents are, and let's start there. That's really good stuff, I think, for any aspiring coach out there that's listening. So I've actually got a question that I finish my podcast with a lot of times that, when I started researching your story, I was like, this question's probably more applicable to Stephen than any other guest, that I've ever had. And I was excited about asking you it. And it's, for anyone out there who's listening, who isn't really feeling alive about their journey, their business, their work, they're just feeling like they're not taking action on their dreams for whatever reason, they feel stuck. How do they get unstuck?
First thing you gotta do is you have to uncover the lie that you're telling yourself. So early days, I realized a lot of my poverty mindset and mental setbacks were because I believed the lie that was spoken over me, that you have to do it. My father, who I love dearly, wasn't around a lot when I was growing up. But when I was around 11, 12 years old, 13 years old, he lost his first business. And he was brokenhearted in that moment. And then he looks over at me. And of course, he doesn't realize he's a wounded person in that moment. So it's not like there's any blame here. But he said, Scoggins, remember Stephen Scoggins, don't get ahead, they get by. And I believed that lie all the way until old man Myrick told me, he goes, do you want to learn to think like me, or do you want to continue thinking like your father? So the greatest thing that you have to realize to get unstuck is you have to identify the lie. You have to overpower it with a truth. And then you have to get your ass to work. Plain and simple. Like, you have to decide that you want more out of your life, regardless of what you've been through, regardless of who's in your back pocket, regardless who's chirping in your ear. You have to decide that your life is exactly that. It is your life. And if you're going to be good at something, be damn good at it. And you only get there by committing to the process. And maybe you don't know what that thing is right now, but what you can do is you can create momentum by just knocking down the thing that's in front of you with excellence. Excellence in the ordinary. If my job is to go out and pick up trash, I'm going to be the best picker up trasher person in the world, right? Do that with excellence, and somebody will see you in the streets and be like, hey, I see you doing that with excellence. I want you to go do this other thing with excellence. And you go do that thing with excellence. And lo and behold, you'll look back after 25 plus years, and you'll all of a sudden look out and you'll see that there's an audience and a community and people you're talking to and you're serving on a regular basis that would not have been there if you'd have just gotten started. Right?
So good, Stephen.
So you got to get started,
man.
I like to believe it like this. The word stuck to me is nothing. It means nothing more than not making progress. That's all it means. Okay. It doesn't mean you should judge yourself. It doesn't mean you should hurt yourself. It doesn't mean that you're worthless or you have every reason to be guilty because you made a mistake 5 years ago or whatever, right? Stuck is not making progress. The polar opposite is becoming unstoppable. Okay. Unstoppable is not necessarily breaking down barriers and busting through walls and all kinds of stuff. It can be part of that. That can be part of the journey. But to become unstoppable, all unstoppable means you can't be stopped, right? How do you not be stopped? It's simple. You take a step every freaking day. Whether you like it or not, you take the step every stinking day. And as a result, you will build what I call critical momentum. That critical momentum will turn into your life truth. And that life truth will turn into your life legacy, your impact, if you will. And you will have lived a life that's been meaningfully led. And you will leave behind you, much like Steve did with me, a legacy that outlived you. I talk
Steve.
about Steve all the time. And no one knows who he is, but he changed my life. And if I can go out right now and become Steve Myrick to as many people as humanly possible, then I will have lived a legacy that outlived me. So start on the thing that's in front of you, commit to overcoming the lies that are inside of you, and then commit to the process and take a freaking step.
Hell yeah. I'm fired up, man. I'm about to run through a wall after that
Let's
one.
go.
Let's go. Let's go, man. Stephen, you brought the fire today. I knew you would. I know everyone out there definitely took one or two things that they're going to put into action today and be better for it. Where can everyone keep up with you, follow you, and get these messages on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I'm seriously, with as much gratitude as possible. Thank you for the opportunity to share. It means a ton to me. As far as the easiest place is StephenScoggins.com. That's SCOGGINS. Yes, 2 G's. I know it's weird last name. Sometimes you get a great one, sometimes you don't, but it is what it is. I'm personally most active on Instagram, which is Stephen_Scoggins. I've been very fortunate, very blessed. I am verified. I am not going to sell you Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. So anybody that has snagged my pictures and my stuff and try to build and I do answer my DMs fairly often. I will be honest with you. My team is also in my DMs, and they're also in my content and stuff like that. But as well,
appreciate the transparency.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just being real, right? But I do read a lot, and no, I'm super grateful. You can find me on all the other platforms with my name and all that good stuff. Again, very fortunate to be verified on all those platforms, and as a result, you can know it's me. So rather than again selling you Bitcoin and trying to take your money.
There you go. Stephen Scoggins. He's not going to sell you Bitcoin, my friends.
Nope.
Hey, everybody, thank you for being here. I'm sure everyone listening got a lot out of this. What I ask is you take one thing that Stephen taught you today and you put it into action today. Until next week, guys, get out there and do big things.